What's up, everybody? This week we continue our three-part series on video games in the 90s and give a brief overview on USA 94. That and a whole lot more is to come, because maybe I'm Guybrush Threepwood and I'm selling these fine leather jackets. Welcome to the show. Who doesn't want to start off the show with a Monkey Island reference? One of the greatest and most underrated games in video game history. Hope everybody's doing well this week, guys. I hope you're doing better than I am right now. As you can tell, my throat has just been giving me, my voice has been giving me grief the last couple of days, and this is not as loud as I can talk. I'm not in any pain or anything like that. It's just my voice has just started acting like this. It'll go away in a couple of days, and some, but yeah, it hasn't been good. If you guys are on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, look at Because Maybe Pod. We have some good stuff going on in there. Look at the blog, BecauseMaybePodcast.wordpress.com, and look up our YouTube channel. Search Because Maybe Podcast. There we have sample episodes and extra episodes and so on and so forth. I wanted to talk one or two things about last week's show before we go ahead and get started with this week's show. We had some quality issues. That's my fault as the producer. I overlooked some things. There was a couple of outtakes that shouldn't have been put in there, and I thought I cut them out, and I didn't. So, my apologies for that. It's completely unprofessional. It is not what I look for in how I do things, and yeah. So, again, my apologies. Sorry about that, everybody. Again, the voice quality, man, I'm sorry about this too. The last couple of times I've been sick, I've had sinus infections and stuff like that, and I couldn't really do anything. The only thing stopping me from this is the voice, and I'm not in any pain, so, what the hell, I'll just go ahead and just talk, But yeah, I sound a little hoarse, and there's nothing wrong with me, but, physically, nothing wrong with me mentally either, so I don't know what's happening. Maybe just a little dry, I'm not sure. I wanted to talk very, very quickly. I'm recording this on Wednesday. Even though we're going out Sunday, I'm recording this on Wednesday because I had a busy weekend ahead. And Germany are going home. What was really, really funny was last week I recorded the podcast, again, Wednesday or Thursday last week, and Germany hadn't played Sweden yet. And yeah, that game was, what a great goal by Kroos in that one. And, I thought the corner had been turned, but at the point of half time, the podcast is coming out the next day, and I'm saying that Germany's going to win it, and they might be knocked out by the time that the podcast comes around. So, no, they're definitely out today, though. They got, well, I say today, like I said, today is Wednesday, I'm recording, the show's coming out Sunday. Germany are done. They lost 2-0 to South Korea with 2 last-minute goals, and Manuel Neuer just playing the very, very interesting position of false number 1, playing out there on the left wing. I don't know what happened. Where did Germany go from here? Well, they're not the first World Cup champions to have been knocked out the previous tournament. In fact, the last 4 European World Champions have been knocked out the group stage. So, that's what it is. That's the way it goes. So I don't know who I'm going to be rooting for from here on out. I don't want to root for Brazil because I can't stand Neymar. I'd probably France, because I still have a bit of a man crush on Olivier Giroud. And I'm sorry, I do. I thought he was vastly underrated by most Arsenal fans and critics. But yeah, so that's where I'm going. Germany are out. Vive la France. So guys, I mentioned all the social media stuff at the top of the episode. So again, if you guys are on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, if you want to look at our blog, look at YouTube, just look up Because Maybe Podcast. I am joined right now by Greg Gregory, and we're going to talk about some of our favorite video games of the 90s, and we've got a whole lot more to come afterwards.
Cultural impact.
Alright guys, I'm not going to jump in and do a big fancy introduction. This week I'm joined by Greg Gregory, and we're going to be talking about the main food groups of the pyramid cycle. No, I'm just kidding. We're talking about the main food groups of what was video gaming in the 90s. We're going to be talking about the games, the genres, and basically the top 6 genres that came out during that period. Side-scrolling, sports sims, shooters, RPGs, racing games, and the old-fashioned beat-em-ups. Sound like fun? does to me. But before we get started, two things. One, I apologize for the voice. My voice is breaking again. I don't know why. I'm probably going through puberty backwards. I wanted to make some corrections from last week over things that I said that were either half-truths or misinformed truths. I've been reliably informed that I was incorrect. I mentioned that Daggerfall was twice the size of Great Britain. It wasn't. It's half the size, so my apologies for that one. I mentioned that I couldn't remember the YouTube name of the Irate Gamer, which sucks because I'm a big fan of the Irate Gamer. It reminds me of the Angry Video Game Nerd. Probably they do the same thing. I don't know. The Skyrim map I said was like 40 miles. It's actually 19 square miles. I said the Atari 7800 had no memory. It actually had 4 kilobytes of memory.
Which is like a thumbnail picture now.
Yeah, not even, So it might as well have had no memory. And, of course, the last one was the Sega Genesis. I said 87. It actually came out in 89. So those corrections aside, I don't want to be fake news. I don't want to be, misinformed. I just want to make sure that we all have the right tools of the trade. So, anyway, now we're going to have some fun. We're going to go down memory lane. So, man, it's good to see you. Good to have you back on here, man. It's I can't think of anybody else I'd rather do this with, because you are as much of a video game player as I am. So, so it's good to have you on. We're going to make a start, and we're going to look at basically the main type of games that people used to think of when they used to think of video games, the old-fashioned side-scrolling platform games. How did they kind of develop in the 90s, you think?
Well, I mean, it all started with the original Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
Before that, if you look at a lot of the Atari games, a lot of them were overhead view.
Yeah.
They were trying to go for sort of like a faux 3D kind of feel. But then you had Jumpman or Pitfall. Pitfall, that was one of the early Atari side-scrollers, first in my memory. So basically what you had people that were trying to unlock the Super Mario Brothers formula, trying to adapt this side-scrolling platformer into different types of branding, different types of characters, etc. So basically, a lot of the games that we're going to be talking about coming up here embrace the side-scroller platformer and then sort of put their own twist on it.
And that was the problem, I guess, with Super Mario Brothers. It was, we mentioned last week, it was ahead of its time, and everybody tried to make a copy of it.
Yeah.
Even Nintendo themselves made a copy of it with Super Mario 2, or as it's known, Super Mario: The Lost Levels.
The Lost Levels, yeah.
Which, man, I could go all day about the Lost Levels in Mario 2, man. That for me is a travesty. It's too hard of a game. Well, get better. Get good.
Right. So, well, I mean, what fun is a game if it's easy?
That's true, but then again, then it becomes too hard. It's too hard.
I mean, there's a line between it being too easy and it being tedious, but somewhere in the middle where the amount of effort that you put in and the amount of reward that you get, they coalesce at a certain point. And that, to me, that's what some of the best games are. Some of the newer ones like Skyrim and stuff like that, where they have dynamic leveling, where your game gets increasingly more difficult as you get better, which I think keeps you honest, keeps everything interesting and everybody on their toes. So,
and then when you get to level like 60, that's it. It's game over. You just look at people and
or 85 when you face the Ebony Warrior.
There is a part in Skyrim where you just need to walk in, just look at people, and everybody go, "Yeah, all right, we're going back." The zombies go, "Yeah, all right, we're going back to sleep."
Yeah, the Draugrs just climb back into their coffins.
Yeah.
Like, oh, sorry, didn't mean to bother you. Yeah, come on in and loot the entire crypt. We're fine. Go right ahead.
Just be careful with that fire. Nintendo released Super Mario 3 in the early 90s. I think it was 1990.
Yeah.
That right there, one of the greatest games ever made.
Definitely.
Hands down. And Super Mario World, which ironically was just a bigger Super Mario 3.
Yeah, it's slightly enhanced, bigger version of it, but I mean, you had the same ideas. The P-wing, the Raccoon Mario, the didn't he have the cape where he could like kind
Super Mario World,
glide around? And
I love the cape.
Yoshi, I think, was also debuted.
Yeah.
Was it in 3 or was it in World?
In
I can't remember. World, yeah. So you had Yoshi. That was huge.
Oh, I loved Yoshi. I really did. Sony, when they entered the fray, they introduced their own spin on platform games with Crash Bandicoot and the Oddworld series.
And you could argue, Sonic the Hedgehog too.
Sonic the Hedgehog too with Sega.
It is on there.
Yeah, it's the thing about we'll go to Sonic here in a minute. The thing about the Crash Bandicoot, it was the first one to utilize north and south, all three dimensions on for a platform game, and it kind of didn't become a side scroller technically because it was 3D, but at the same time it still had all of the
elements of a good side scroller.
You had power ups. You had an item that gives you extra mana. In this case, it was like fruit, the Wumpa fruit. You had the invisibility icon, the mask, and you had a goal at the end where you had to reach to claim an object. So it was basically Mario in 3D with different,
I've actually never played that game. I only know a little bit about it. Let me ask you something. Is this one of those games where it's okay, you have two types of side scrollers. You have like an open side scroller where you go at your own volition, like Mario.
Yeah.
Like you can go forward at any rate you want, but you can't go backward once the screen is passed. Then they have other ones where they kind of push you along.
No, this is Crash Bandicoot only has a couple of those kind of levels.
Okay.
Crash Bandicoot 2 in particular, because that's the one I'm more familiar with. They have a couple of levels that are chase levels.
Okay,
so
that
you run
makes sense.
towards the screen and you can't go back because like the boulder is chasing you, kind of like the old Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay.
Crash Bandicoot was really, really good. The storyline was a little bit over the top.
Well, yeah.
But I mean, this was the early days when video games didn't really have storylines.
Sure.
So
they were kind of pioneering that in their own way. I mean, because you could argue that Zelda had a storyline, but it wasn't directly necessarily embedded into the gameplay.
No.
There was
no cause and effect.
And there was backstories in Nintendo Power, and there was folklore and stuff that you could read in the manual, but for the most part, it wasn't like, when you start on the bottom, the first screen, and there's a little opening, you walk, take, it's dangerous to go alone, take this. There was no extended dialogue about
why should I take this?
Right, where are you going? What are you doing? They kind of just threw you to your own devices, which in a way kind of allows you to create your own story. But out of context, you're able to figure out, okay, I got to get all these little pieces of the Triforce and go, save the world, rescue Princess.
So, they should have really called that series the Legend of Link.
Yeah, people everybody thinks that Link is Zelda, and it's like how to spot a noob in three seconds.
One of the games I love is the Oddworld series, and I did a review on it a couple of months ago. So if you guys want to know my thoughts about Oddworld, check out season 1, episode 8. So, but basically, just because you're listening now, it was a great pioneer of the genre. The genre was dead by the time mid '97 came around, and then Oddworld came out.
Yeah.
And they introduced things that they basically changed it from a side-scrolling platform to a side-scrolling platform puzzle.
Okay.
And the puzzles weren't, use this cube to make this circle or whatever. The puzzles were, how do you get past the obstacles?
Yeah. And
some of the gameplay on it, like I said, some of the gameplay on it is fantastic. Some of it's funny. It started companion mode, for lack of a better term. It started, hey, you guys have to come with me and we have to do this, as opposed to I'm doing it by myself.
Sure.
And it had a great storyline. It was a classic storyline, but it's still a great storyline. You mentioned Sonic the Hedgehog earlier, and I wanted to lump in Sonic the Hedgehog with Streets of Rage because they were both Sega
exclusives,
for the longest time. Sonic the Hedgehog, man, strangely, after Sonic 3, unlike Mario, who went from strength to strength, he had better games, new franchises that, like Mario Kart and Mario Party. That
new features.
Sonic kind of, after Sonic 3, when they introduced Sonic and Knuckles, that's when it peaked.
Yeah, well, I think the problem was they were doing their due diligence and they were trying to embrace the new technology. They put out Sonic 3D, and they had some other titles, that even have gone up to as recent as the Xbox.
Yeah.
But I think that they kind of shot themselves in their own foot unintentionally, because one of the appeals of Sonic was just the way that it played, the charm of it, the spin dash, the going fast, the collecting the rings, the kooky music. And you saw shades of them playing around with 3D, and I believe it was either Sonic 2 or 3, where they had the bonus levels where you're in the half pipe.
Yeah, Sonic 2. I love those things.
So they were trying to do more of that in the later titles, and I think it kind of unintentionally alienated some of the older OG Sonic people, kind of like us. They grew up playing Genesis consoles, and they just kind of sort of started catering to the younger generations who were going to appreciate the
flashiness.
The use of technology more than, say, the authenticity of the franchise.
See, when a couple of years ago they released a Sonic collectibles for the Xbox 360.
Yeah, they I think that was all platform, because I've actually got it for PSP and for PS3.
I think so. But we like had all the Sonics in there, and I'd only played a handful of Sonic 3 because, to be quite honest, by the time Sonic 3 came out, I was already knee deep in Sony land at the time.
Yeah, I was doing Tekken and Final Fantasy and like lots of other more in-depth stuff.
Sonic seemed a little passé at the time.
Right.
But like my son was playing it a couple of weeks ago, and I'm just watching it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't play it. I didn't waste $50 playing this, because Sonic 3, it might have been, the soundtrack was awful, in my opinion. The gameplay was like too bright. I mean, it was so many colors.
Too much going on, yeah.
Yeah, it was just so hard to concentrate on. And yeah, kind of like the original Mario 2 Lost Levels. It was a little bit more difficult than the rest, and didn't really add any features. It just ramped the difficulty up. Because Sonic 2 was a hell of a game.
Masterpiece. Yeah, one was really good. I enjoyed one, but I think two they introduced the spin dash.
Yep.
And you had
Tails
as well, who let's face it, was in one player mode was a source of entertainment and annoyance at best. But yeah, I mean the soundtrack, the gameplay, the engine that they used on that was a new engine, so the game had a very sleek, very distinct, very fast look. Yeah, definitely the best game of the Sonic series, in my opinion.
And very few bugs and glitches.
I haven't encountered very many glitches on the Sega platform at all. More so on Nintendo than Sega.
It's like, with all due respect to all the video game developers, it's like even during this console war that's going on at the same time, Sega was able to like third party and beta test their games to death.
Yeah, they had an unrivaled stability for the time.
Yeah,
I remember playing Streets of Rage on NES, and there's all kinds of little glitches everywhere. There's one where you're climbing a ladder. You're climbing a ladder, and then you like go down a platform and climb up the ladder. There's like ladders on the opposing sides. Once you get to about the 5th level, a door appears, and like a mini boss comes out of it.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you how much time I spent trying to beat that guy, and I couldn't. But then I figured out that if I go down the ladders all the way until he's out of the screen, it would kill him. So there's always little glitches like that I found in Nintendo, that being one of several. I never did manage to find one in Sega, though.
And I mean, we briefly touched on this last week. They couldn't port the games over for crap.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays it's easy to port a PS3 and a Microsoft and whatever, because they kind of run on similar engines, just a little...
And just throw a little scripting in there.
Yeah, but now they couldn't do it. I mean, I mentioned last week Theme Park. I loved Theme Park. It was just a goofy game, but the version on the SNES was dreadful. It was full of glitches. All the charm that was taken out of it. But you mentioned Streets of Rage. That was one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah, I mean, to me that was a good one. I think that they were it's kind of the whole Double Dragon mentality.
Yeah.
But instead of being brothers, it was a group of miscreants. I kind of like that. They had I'm not sure if I played part 1. I had part 2. But they had the guy that was on the roller skates and stuff.
I think that was part 2, yeah.
Yeah, and just really, really cool, innovative. The color schemes and stuff, the way it flowed. It wasn't a forced side scroller. It was like a side scroller, beat 'em up with a little bit of 3D in it.
Yeah, you couldn't go backwards, obviously, but I mean,
Right.
Well, one of the things I liked about it was they had, I think in all 3 games they had 3 characters you could pick from, and there was 3 stats.
Yeah.
And everybody had 2 stats that was A and 1 stat that was B. So it was like strength, speed, and jump.
Yeah.
So it was always a 3-ring circus. None of the characters were exactly the same. You were either weak but quick and could jump high, or you couldn't jump but you were fast and strong, or you could jump but you were very, very slow and very, very strong. So you had to strategize, which even back then, 92, 93 was innovative.
Yeah.
And we got Earthworm Jim. Did you ever play Earthworm Jim?
Yes. Oh, I played Earthworm Jim a lot. To me, Earthworm Jim is kind of like the Beavis and Butthead of side-scrolling platforms. It's just really wacky. The last level, I will never forget it because I had to play it, I think, at least 100 times. The Nefarious Psychro. I'll never forget that. Yeah, it was a fun game. It was a real creative, like out-of-the-box use of the platformer. Once again, merging a little bit into the 2.5D, like we talked about last week. You had 3D backgrounds, dynamic backgrounds, being able to interact with the background, that sort of thing. It was fun. I think it was a very, very creative attempt, definitely.
Well, an honorable mention goes to James Pond, which was, if you've never played it, it was on Sega and it was on Amiga. And it was a side-scrolling game where you played the aforementioned James Pond. A.k.a. Robocod.
Any relation to Amy Pond?
Pretty much, I don't know. It was so British game. You had Bertie Bassett, Licorice Allsorts as your enemies and stuff like that. If you've never played it and want a thing for the goofy, do it. If you are a pot smoker and you just like bright colors and goofy things, go ahead and do that too. We won't judge you here at this podcast. So, what happened basically to side scrollers is they became 3D and adventure games and RPG games, which we will get to here in a minute. In a little while as to, what the aftermath of that stuff was, because that was a very, very big shift in dynamics. One of the other big things to come along in the 90s was sports simulators. Interestingly enough, I didn't know this when I did the research. Madden was an 80s creation. Yeah. Did not know that.
Yeah, it had a different moniker. It was called, I believe it was called Joe Montana's Sports Talk Football. Montana had the endorsement for a while. Madden did the voice of it. A couple years later, it became NFL football, and I think the first one was the first one that was called Madden, I believe, was 92, 93,
something along those lines.
So it existed in a sense in the 80s, but it didn't really truly become Madden until the early 90s. But yeah, I mean. Yeah, definitely.
EA had a monopoly on that kind of stuff, on the games, especially on the Sega.
Yeah.
You had the FIFA series, you had NBA Jam,
RBI baseball,
NHL.
Yeah.
I love the NHL game. The fact that you could fight somebody.
Yeah, that was a fun game.
And me at 10 years old, somebody getting sent off the rink for slashing.
Yeah.
I was like, he's peeing on the ice. So, yeah, that's but I mean, the olden times when you played sports games, they weren't really that good because the programming wasn't there. Yeah. When we got the new 3D kind of rendering and stuff like that, I mean, the FIFA series, FIFA 94, the World Cup game, is one of the best sports games ever made. We can talk about all the new FIFAs and all the new tricks, but as far as basic fundamentals and how to play a sports game, that was one of the best of all time. The original Madden 94 around that time. 94 seemed to be a good year for EA and sports simulators.
It was. They really took off. Like I said, they had they had their hands in all the pro sports. So they did a really good job of setting the bar for many other companies to try to duplicate.
Do you think they had Sony had their ear? Sony had Electronic Arts ear. Show me what you can do, and they bring out NBA Jam was ahead of its time, FIFA was ahead of its time, Madden was ahead of its time, so on and so forth.
I don't necessarily know that. I think just EA was just a good forward-thinking company
at the time.
That was. Well, I mean, they some stuff they do is still pretty good. They still do a great job on Madden. That's that's a great game. But at the time, yeah, their specialty seemed to be sports, racing. Not mentioned on here, but one of my favorite games. That was actually your social media question last week, wasn't it? What's your favorite?
Favorite game of the 90s.
Yeah, my favorite game of the 90s has to be Road Rash for Sega Genesis.
You know what? I didn't put Road Rash on here.
Road Rash is an amazing game.
Well, you know what?
Road Rash is one of those games that if it came out now, you'd have to put a litany of disclaimers all on it. Okay, do not ride a motorcycle illegally at a high rate of speed in the wrong lane
while
hitting somebody with a chain. Like, you don't do these things.
No, I love Road Rush. I don't know why I didn't put it down.
I forget about it too, but man, that was one of my favorite games.
I love the second Road Rush the best.
Road Rash 2 was good. When I got the code for the really, really fast bike.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember what it's called, but it had like unlimited nitro.
Yes.
You do like 300 miles an hour.
And then you take a corner, and then all of a sudden, PE number one beats you with a stick.
Oh, Public Enemy number one.
See, the thing about Road Rush was it was a really, really great game, and I guess there's a theme, right, to all these games that Sega produced.
Yeah.
The first one was like the concept.
Yeah.
And it was really good. But the second one blew it out the water.
Yeah, because they looked at the good and the bad, and then they just thought, okay, how can we make this better? Because same thing, Road Rash 1 was good. 2 is when they really ramped it up with like the bike selection and
Full selection.
Yeah, and just the combat. You could actually steal weapons from people and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, for the time, they were the best in class for anything. Racing or sports. I mean, there was just no other challenge.
EA was the king of the simulation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. And now they've become, according to most gamers, the evil empire.
I don't know if I can't remember. I think it's Activision that did Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. That, to me, that was a huge title too.
Tony Hawk's, what's the best way to say this? They kind of tapped into that skater market better than I've seen any video game crossover ever do.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, what Tony Hawk effectively did was that they created a market. They made skateboarding financially viable.
Yeah.
They made other kids want to pick up skateboards and do that sort of thing. I actually heard something really funny the other day, real quick. Apparently, it was a Boomhauer meme, and it said basically the real Tony Hawk died in 1984. The guy you know now is not Tony Hawk, but an impersonator who popularized skateboarding to keep children injured so that their parents would spend lots of money on medical bills.
Mind blown.
Paul
is dead. Tony Hawk is dead. Avril Lavigne is dead.
But I mean, in a way, I mean, all that nonsense aside, they popularized underground sport.
Yeah.
They made it commercially viable. They made kids buy skateboards. They made them
rollerblades.
Yeah, buy the games, do that, and before you know it, now for the past 15 years, there's been a yearly festival dedicated to skateboarding, BMX, and music, So it was absolutely huge societal implications. Definitely.
And I mean, the games themselves as well. Okay, when you had FIFA, you had International Superstar Soccer. When you had NBA Jam, you had another NBA game. You had, and they were all on similar quality. The thing about Tony Hawk is it blew every other skateboard game out of the water.
Yeah, some of the other competitors when that first came out was Skate or Die, which is like
it's not worth the plastic it's printed on.
Yeah, it's just, I think the concept was a good idea. I just think the execution was a little bit lacking. It's very clunky, very unresponsive. Yeah. So.
Now the funny thing about Tony, now I gotta get this name right. The funny thing about Tony Hawk's. Right? Is his name Tony Hawks or Tony Hawk?
Hawk, singular.
Singular, okay. There is a British comedian called Tony Hawks, plural,
right,
who regularly gets fan emails.
Fan mail, hate mail, whatever.
For Tony Hawk. And for a while he just ignored it, and then he dedicated a whole section on his website where he would, these kids would email him, and then he'd email them something back, and, it was really, really funny. I wonder if they ever met. They should have done.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good.
One of my favorite game series came out in that time. It's been attributed to at least no fewer than 100 divorces in the UK. That's the Football Manager or Championship Manager series. If you've never played it, my British listeners, you might as well clock out because you know what I'm about to say. If you've never played it, it is the ultimate statistical fantasy football type thing ever. All the players are based by stats.
Dungeons and Dragons for jocks.
Dungeons and Dragons for jocks, absolutely. And I don't want to say it's addictive, but I limit myself to 3 hours a week. Because if I didn't, I'd sit there all day and not change pants. My cousin got me into that one, so thanks Jamie for that one. Honorable mentions go to Knockout Kings, which was really, really good. Evander Holyfield's Real Deal box.
Oh, screw it! Oh, I love that game so much. Like the sound when you punch it.
And it's really, really good. Like you see the ring, and like there's that couple in the front row, like with the cheesy background graphics that continue to animate. So there's this dude bobbing his head into.
There's another guy going, like raising his arms in this mechanical.
And of course, everybody's favorite theatrical sport made its debut in video games. WWE SmackDown. Now, the aftermath of all this is, with the exception of maybe Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, every video game of a sports simulation is exactly the same. The only thing they do is add maybe one or two features, upgrade the roster,
upgrade some graphics. Madden's been out for a while, and I think it was about 2007, 2008. That's the last time that I remember them making like really sweeping changes. So literally,
it's just a roster upgrade,
and which doesn't make sense because on your previous version of Madden, you can upgrade the roster whenever you want.
Yeah.
So basically, you're paying for new cover art, a couple of updated features, and maybe, the ability to play people online on that new server, which I think is what gets people a lot of people in the grip, because people move over and then
server.
Yeah, and then no one's at the. I if I logged into the Madden 2012 server right now, there would be nobody there. Just like the other day, I logged in the Red Dead Redemption server. There's like 4 people in there, and they're all like 12, telling me about how my mom sucks. Thanks, guy. I never would have known that without you.
That's actually how I started the blog. There are 3 things the gaming world agrees on. Number 1, PC gamers are the master race, which is a stupid thing.
Yeah.
Number 2, Xbox v Sony war is alive and well. And number 3, everybody slept with my mama. So, man, she was busy because she has to cook as well. And by the way, that's not a sexist comment. My mother was a stay-at-home mother. So we move on to shooters, which they weren't first-person shooters until they didn't become first-person shooters until around this time.
Yeah.
But they were just referred to as shooters or shoot-em-ups.
Yeah.
Star Fox. I hated that game.
I never really cared for it.
Not because of the stupid, hey, do a barrel roll. The graphics was supposed to be the state-of-the-art, brand new graphics, and it looked like just something that somebody had done in, Amiga Paint.
Yeah.
It
like a failed kindergarten painting project.
Yeah, it was just all blocky, it looked like early prototype PlayStation demos.
Yeah, and I'm having some of that trouble now, downloading like the classic games and stuff on PS1, for PS1 on my PS3. I'm trying to remember the name of it. My wife likes this game. It's like you're racing like these hovercraft looking things.
Virtua Racer?
I can't remember what it's called, but anyway, she bought that and we put it on, and it's like
Wipeout.
I know the name if I heard it. Anyway, it's like a whole bunch of blocks, like flying slowly over other blocks. It just absolutely blows my mind, the transition from HD to non-HD.
Well, see, even then, though, like Nintendo had Pilot Wings, right, which was not a shooter, but it had better graphics than the much heralded Star Fox, and just, to me, it's like, if you can make these kind of graphics, it was basically a rip-off of Star Wars with anthropomorphic animals. Say that 5 times fast.
They just got lazy, apparently, or...
It kind of did, and it was a good concept. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
And Doom,
great game.
The first video game I can remember in the UK that had a age rating sticker on it.
Yeah,
it's the first 18 rated game in the UK.
You got to be 18 to see Nazis die, apparently.
Well, Doom was a good game, and like the history of Doom, I could go into it right now, but the history of Doom is so weird.
Yeah,
just starts like basically Doom is the ultimate mod, for lack of a better term.
Oh no, that's the original. That was the first time, to my memory, where the company would openly let you create and develop your own levels. And I used to do that all the time. I would develop a room for my friend. I would put this room and then put like 400 dudes in it. just
watch him just crap his pants.
Put a turkey leg on the outside or whatever it was, and you open it. Oh my goodness! Put like 7 Hitlers in there. Just put like way too many people. But yeah, that was a very fun game. That one and Duke Nukem, I felt like were real similar. I think Duke Nukem kind of embraced the technological side because it was set in the future.
Yeah,
it was a little bit newer, so it was sharper. It had like the full colored values and all that stuff.
The sarcasm too.
Also, there was voiceovers of him, and actually, and that was something that you didn't hear a lot in video games.
No.
Up until that point. So that was plus the LAN capabilities. We talked that last week.
Yeah.
You could dial into each other and play a deathmatch, which was cool. And
not just that. I mean, they were the basic the grandfathers of what became the hyper-violent games.
Yeah.
The hyper-violence. Look, the violent games have been around forever, but these were like beyond even at the time.
Yeah.
Now they're considered tame, but I mean, it just goes to show you, where video gaming was at that time.
I don't know if you could safely call them tame. I mean, I guess we're desensitized to it to a certain extent. Yeah. I would say they're normal. They're accepted as normal.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd ever call it tame, but yeah, I mean,
tamer compared to now.
Yeah, no, it was shocking at first. I mean, it was definitely something that we hadn't seen aside from the blood code and the fatalities in Mortal Kombat. But even then, that wasn't.
You had to work for those, we mentioned.
Yeah, but not only that, but like, you can't walk up to somebody and just rip their head off.
No.
Like, I don't care how strong or trained you are in karate, but just about anybody can grab a gun and go crazy. So
we found out.
Unfortunately, so.
Tomb Raider came out in that time. Tomb Raider was different to all the others because it wasn't a shoot 'em monsters level, monster.
It was more like puzzles, negotiating terrain. It was kind of like sort of thing.
Kind of like a Bond piece, where it was the hero fighting henchmen for the most part.
Yeah.
The infamous Lara Croft breast enchantment. You hear that story?
I heard something about a nude code.
No, the nude code doesn't exist.
But come on.
But what happened was,
I want to see pixelated boobies. Yeah. Come on, Paul.
Play Killer Instinct is orchid. That's how you see pixelated boobies. But Lara Croft, the way they created a character, they wanted to make the character look, they did. Do not make this character look sexy just for the sake of looking sexy, right? They didn't want it to be, they didn't want it to be scantily clad or anything like that. And he was the dude who was designing her model so to beef up the shoulders by like 50%, and he ended up enhancing her breasts by 50%, and that's where it stuck.
Oh.
But
well, they can be used as a flotation device.
That's right. I never got into Tomb Raider. I don't think it just at the time. Remember, at the time it was just too complicated for me.
I played a little bit of it. I don't know. I was at the time I was looking more to like shoot somebody, blow something up, kicks, fight a friend in Tekken. Yeah, just nothing against the game. I think just for a lot of people because of other games that were coming out at the time, a lot of people kind of didn't.
I think if you were used to the Mario, Sonic, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat kind of, circle of games.
Yeah.
When something like Tomb Raider came along, it was just too big to comprehend, I guess.
I wish they'd have taken that idea. Like, I'm not saying they should have eradicated, like, Tomb Raider should not exist. I wish that sort of care and detail could have gone into a legitimate Indiana Jones video game.
Definitely.
They had a couple versions on Atari. They were just... they didn't have the technology to do what they want to do. They did a game for that now. I mean, you could do it full HD, cutscenes. I mean, absolutely. You could do it VR. I mean, you could do so much you could do with it.
Well, I think that's why a lot of the developers are creating their own franchises similar to, Indiana Jones.
Uncharted and I guess you could see. Excuse me. You could say Tomb Raider too.
You could say, I'm not just
same vein.
Yeah, not just like Indiana Jones spin-offs, but like all big franchise type things. I mean, like for example, we're going to talk about the Elder Scrolls here in a minute. That has Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth, Tolkien written all over it.
Yeah,
all over it. And I think by having, because remember we talked last week that movies about video games are not really that good, and video games based on movies are kind of good but not great. But by creating their own universes and their own unique plot lines, they can control, you know, the development, stuff like that. That's why I think Tomb Raider was a success, not just because of Lara Croft in, you know, shorty shorts and buxom, yeah.
Yeah.
Now the new Tomb Raider that's come out the last couple of years, the reboot. The original Tomb Raider game for Xbox 360 was a fantastic
My
game.
wife loves the Tomb Raider series. I think she's beat all of them. Now she's doing Beyond Two Souls, which is a really... If you've never played that game, it's for PS3. Definitely check it out. It's you can control it with your tablet or your device. Yeah, it's really it's different. It's unique. I like it.
Well, talking of unique and different games, Resident Evil.
Oh, that is on my all-time favorites list.
Sarah owns a copy of the original game in the tall case with the cardboard, and
nice.
I'd never played it before, and she was playing it, and she was pregnant at the time with our son, and like I'd be, every time something would jump out, and she would just be like, wimp, just looking. And that was kind of ahead of its time as well, but it did do something that a lot of these games didn't. It embraced the technology that was available.
Yeah,
it had voice acting, cutscenes. It was the first game of its scope. I think.
It was. To me, it was one of the first games that fully showcased and utilized the technology of its current time. Aside from, let's say, the original Mario Brothers.
Yeah, and it was like one of the first games where you couldn't sit there and play the game in one sitting.
Oh no, and
it would take 50, 60 hours to go through. Yeah,
and you had to be very you had to plan ahead. You had to compensate for stuff later on. It was a real thinking type game, and
it was a thinking man's game.
I really appreciate that. I had a roommate that I lived with for a while that played Resident Evil 1 a lot. I kind of just hung out and watched him play it. Didn't really get to play it until 4 on the Wii. But I have played that game. I probably beat it 50 times. At least. It's a really, really fun game. And it just gets more fun the more you beat it, because you get new weapons and costumes and
you can go
modes.
Back and
yeah.
Well, one of the honorable mentions of shooters during this era was the Fallout series. Now, Fallout originally started off as a turn-based RPG survival game. Yeah. Not like what we know it as right now. And this sounds sacrilegious to Fallout players, but please understand that the engine for the Elder Scrolls was used for both the Fallout games, Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, that came after Bethesda took it over. So essentially, saying the Elder Scrolls with guns kind of seemed derogatory, but it is kind of,
It's fair.
It's a fair analysis. It's an adventure game based on this engine.
It's got the same controls, same engine. It's got a lot of similarities.
Yeah, but the problem, not the problem, but before in the 90s it came out as like a turn-based RPG, which those are hard. Yeah, I think only like RPGs like that only take off in East Asia. In Japan, the Korean Peninsula, all that area of the world. Like, certain games in Europe, certain games in North America, that's a strictly Asian game. I wouldn't have expected Fallout to become as big as it did until Fallout 3, but then again, Fallouts 1 and 2 were good. They were all right, you know. But again, it just led to another franchise, jumping out there. Well, RPG and adventure games started taking off during this era. They were like the original choose-your-own-adventure games,
Yeah.
My favorite out of everything that came out in that time period was the Monkey Island series. Guybrush Threepwood, a pirate who sells fine leather jackets. Just the great thing about it was created by LucasArts. So, you knew it was going to be a good game. It had lots of winks and nods, and, it was very, very anachronistic, but in a funny way. Guybrush Threepwood is the most inept pirate of all time, yet one of the funniest, most endearing characters in video game history. I love Monkey Island. I really, really do. And
that might have been more of a Europe thing, or maybe I just totally slept on it, because that's my first time hearing about it.
Really?
Yeah, to be completely and totally honest, yeah.
Man, I've got to get you a copy of it.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to see if I can find a little snippet of it on YouTube, get a taste of it.
And it was one of those things where, you had to click on your person, click on the command, then click on the object. So
okay.
Steve walk to door. Steve open door.
Like King's Quest, kind of.
Similar, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was really, but it was funny. It was one of the first comedy games out there, but with a serious heart to it. And it did have a storyline, which is weird for a game coming out in the early 90s, especially on something like the Amiga. But at the same time, it was coded well. It was, it was really, really good. Going on the other end of the scale, Grand Theft Auto also came out in the 90s.
Yeah, I remember playing a shareware version of it that my buddy snagged off of a FTP server somewhere, like a freeware version, and just couldn't believe that content was in a video game, that someone actually spent the time to program it so that you could run over somebody and just make a little person splat on the ground.
Talk about a game that's ahead of its time. The originals, at least, anyway.
Yeah.
Because, okay, look, you were viewing them from above. Okay, fair enough. But that was the limitation of the technology, especially.
For them, they felt like that was the best way to make it work.
And it was. I mean, you had to answer phones to get your quests.
Yeah.
Which kind of, as a fan of the movie Die Hard with a Vengeance, that kind of... the games weren't connected in any way, but it made it feel like it was something that I've seen before. It was familiar.
Yeah.
The type of vehicles that you could drive every vehicle in that game.
If you could steal it, you could drive it.
And like my favorite was stealing the tank and then just running over the like I said, running over the Buddhist conga line. I just can you believe that it got away with what it got away with?
Yes. Because I think no matter how hard people push back against video games and saying that, violence in video games is detrimental to our society, I think that America as a whole loves guns and violence. I mean, maybe not as a whole, but as a majority. I think that we have sort of normalized that sort of behavior as of recent. So I'm not condoning it or either way, just from a solid viewpoint, I am surprised, but I'm not.
Okay.
Like, morally, I'm surprised, but of America and, like, just how we love guns and shooting and all that stuff. Yeah, no, it's not surprising to me.
Are you surprised at how big the franchise became?
Oh, I mean, yes.
That first game did not have biggest video game franchise of all time.
No, that was I am a video production video game student, and I'm building this in my spare time in my basement.
And I'm looking for a job. Please give me a job.
Yeah, look, I can code. Look, I can program. Look, I can, But for it to be where it is now, to have a massive, multiplayer presence, 7 or more legitimate top-selling titles, and the thing is, now it's evolved into more than driving around running over Buddhist conga line.
Yeah,
it's you can choose to not do that. You can do nice things. You can race. You can
pretty much play as a taxi driver.
You can do whatever you want, and that's what's so cool about it. It gives you are whatever kind of person you choose to be in that game, and the same And that to me, that's true immersion. If you
do what you want,
if you have a choice, you get a lot more immersion. So,
one of the series that came out was something that I honestly did not know about. You brought it to my attention. It's called Myst.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What was Myst for the people like me who are uninitiated?
Myst is a point of view adventure / puzzler, I guess is the best thing to call it.
Okay.
Graphically, sonically, texturally, it was way ahead of its time too. It opened the door to a lot of realism-based games, because that's basically what this was. You basically are dropped in the middle of an island. You don't know where you are. You don't know why you're there. You don't know what you're doing. But as you move around the island and touch things, move things, collect things, pieces of an enigma, of a mystery start to unveil.
Okay. And
it's like peeling back the layer of an onion. You peel back one layer, you find another, and you peel back that layer and you find... So, yeah, point of view of adventure, type of RPG. You don't know who you are. You're never acknowledged in the game. You don't see other people. I mean, it was very innovative. The whole idea of isolation, the whole idea of figuring out your own devices. You had to be clever, or at minimum earnest to play this game, because it was not going to give you anything. You had to point and click, go everywhere, try everything, just do everything you could. But yeah, absolutely fantastic game. That part 1 and part 2, you could dump at least 200 or 300 hours in both of them. So if you, I think you can get it on Steam or the Microsoft page. I've seen you go to archive.org, you can find a lot of versions of the games that we're talking about on emulators, etc. So check that out, archive.org.
Now, I'm not nodding as I say this, but if you download an emulator, you have to have owned the original copy. Wink.
Okay.
Because we like legal stuff here. Wink.
Yeah, we do not condone pirating or breaking the law in any way.
Exactly. Do not try this at home. Try this at your friend's house. One of my favorite series of all time came out in this era was the Elder Scrolls.
Oh, absolutely.
The Elder Scrolls Arena. It was originally supposed to be a gladiatorial combat game,
which makes sense. The arena sense of it,
and the cover art, and then it became like the RPG that we know that started it all.
It would have gotten old really, really fast if they'd stayed with the
arena concept.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I really feel like it would have. I mean, because look at Mortal Kombat now. It's like Mortal Kombat 24. Sub-Zero's gonna freeze Scorpion again. Yeah. It's like, come on, it's cool, but
they have the pit mode or the arena mode in Oblivion, and that got old really fast. And they were going to put it in Skyrim, and they decided not to. If you have mods, you can get the arena, the arena combat.
I was about to say, there's a console command to
you can go into the
unfinished pit. Arena. Yeah. It
was supposed to be the Windhelm Prison, I think. But the original Elder Scrolls game, the Elder Scrolls Arena, and its follow-up Daggerfall, had a dynamic world. So, like, what's the best way to say this? The towns and the dungeons were created. The rest of the world, randomly generated.
Right.
And again, that built into the technology at the time. But the problem is they made the map actual size.
Yeah.
So, like, if you didn't have fast travel points, it would literally be 10 hours between one town and another. Or 30 hours between, one province to another province.
Well, I'm not even going to lie. I never played any of the Elder Scrolls games until Skyrim. And even then, I did not have a copy of Part 5 until 2015.
Dang.
I mean, it'd been out 4 or 5 years before I got my hands on it. My good friend Kat gave it to me for my birthday and said, hey, try this out, see if you like it. She worked at GameStop at the time, so she's like, if you don't like it, I can go grab you something else. I plugged it in. About 10 hours later, I was like, okay, sold.
Yeah.
So
I saw all the memes to it, and for Skyrim at least, I saw all the memes, and I came out of hospital in the day after Thanksgiving 2013. I was having a head scan, and my wife had bought Xbox for the family present for Christmas, but because I was just out of the hospital and I was miserable, she let us open it, and I started, and I had no clue what I was doing. Yeah. But man, it was a good game. It was a really, really good game. And now, like, I know as much as I should about it. I know more about that than I know about some of my own kids for which isn't a good thing, but
Yeah. One of the things I tried to keep that to a blind playthrough
as much as possible.
I knew there were, well, no, I did until I beat the main quest line for the first time, because I don't want to know any of the storylines or endings and stuff like that. But after I beat it and I went back and started looking at some of the resources on YouTube, man, you wouldn't believe how much you can learn about anything on YouTube. I know I'm probably telling everybody always knows this, but yeah, but if you want to learn about any video game or graphic arts, history, I mean, pretty much it's all there. And Skyrim's no different, man. There's all kinds of builds and approaches, and it's
there were two video guys who I followed on YouTube, and one of them quit YouTube, and the other one I don't know what happened to, but they noticed that, like, say they'd put a Skyrim video out, they'd get 10,000 views, and they'd put one of them was doing the South Park game, The Stick of Truth.
Yeah.
So he'd put a Skyrim video out Monday, a Skyrim video out Wednesday, and the Stick of Truth out in between them.
Yeah.
And the 2 Skyrim videos would get like 30,000 views between them, and the Stick of Truth would get like 600 views.
Yeah.
And that was his argument was, man, I'm not just going to play an 8-year-old game, just play an 8-year-old game, you know. Which is a shame because it's a damn good game and he was a damn good YouTuber. But,
I mean, it's never the same game, though. That's what I don't understand about that game. Skyrim is what you want it to be.
Yeah.
You can play it any way you want. I know a guy that's got a skooma addict build. I mean, how do you even do that?
I don't know. But that's
that's the beauty of it.
Yep.
If you want to just go get a house and just chop wood all day,
you can do it.
Make potions, go to the Bee and Barb and drink ale. I mean, you can do whatever you want, dude. That's what's the beauty of it.
And it all came from Arena, which was a bug-filled nightmare.
Yep.
I mean, look, the original 2 games are not going to win any awards anymore. But
Oblivion,
man.
Good game.
Oblivion was fantastic. Morrowind, they say that Morrowind had the best storyline. Oblivion had the best depth, and Skyrim had the best gameplay.
I could see that. I have a copy of Oblivion now for PC. I just have not broken into it yet. So
it's a little clunky if you're going backwards. I'll be honest.
Well, I feel like I should at least try it out to pay homage to a great game that I love very much.
And now another addictive series that came out was Pokemon.
Yeah, you know, I was a little too old for the Pokemon. Never really saw the appeal of it. I think it's because my younger brother was into it.
Same here.
So I was just like, eh.
Now, I've played it up to a point.
I respect the franchise, and I respect the people that like it. It's just not my cup of tea, so to speak.
With the risk of of getting the Pokemon community on my ass, believe me, my son and my daughter are your people. You know, they love the games, and it makes them happy, and I enjoy them too. Just after a point, they become too samey. After you got 6 hours, after you get 6 hours into it, you walk, fight, walk, fight, walk, fight, walk, fight. You know, and it just got that.
Kind of like the second Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
Was that Link to the Past?
Yep. Link to the Past. Zelda put out a couple good ones too. Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time.
Oh, Ocarina of Time, man! Instant classic, full 3D. The water temple can shove off.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, was that the one with Navi in it?
Hey. Yeah.
That's what I do to my kids to get them to listen to me, just annoy them with that.
The only time I've ever wanted to shoot someone in a video game so badly was either her or the dog from Duck Hunt. I just wanted to just destroy both of them.
Dang right.
Plug in my zapper, just.
Can somebody make that game, please? Thank you.
Yeah, it's Duck Hunt, but it's all dogs. It's all the dog from Duck Hunt.
Now, I love dogs, by the way. Don't get me wrong.
No, yeah, we're talking about a fictional dog in a video game.
Who deny the piss out of you?
We love animals. Yeah. No worries.
I love animals. Tasty with a bit of mint sauce. The aftermath of RPGs, shooters, and I guess side-scrolling games is they kind of all merge together, you know, to one big genre. Now it's all open world. It's all, you know, as we mentioned with Skyrim, you do what you want. As we mentioned with Fallout, you can do what you want. Even the Mario games are starting to be like that. You know?
Yeah, the new ones on Wii U. My father-in-law has got that, and yeah, man, there's a good bit of free will there, and I think that was the future of gaming. Going back to one of the first things we talked about on the side-to-side platformer. When you had the ones that pushed you along, I feel like that was sort of the antithesis of
what a game should be.
Yeah, I mean, it should all fall under certain constructs and constraints, but like for the game to operate. But I think the more freedom you can give the people that are playing the game, the better. So why not?
That's right. That's one of the things I'm hoping for Elder Scrolls 6. Just give me the choice. Don't force me to be a werewolf.
I see a very horrible game on this list coming up.
Actually, you see 2 of them. Racing games. Racing games were pretty big in the 90s. But there was the great thing about it wasn't all cars, all motorcycles, right? I know we mentioned Road Rash earlier. Gran Turismo was the ultimate in car racing, I think.
Racing simulator, I think, yeah.
But then you had F-Zero, which was racing, futuristic vehicles.
Yeah, more, fantasy.
And you brought up Twisted Metal, and I brought up Destruction Derby.
I wouldn't know if I would call it... See, Twisted Metal's not really... You're in a car, but I wouldn't really call it a racing game. I would call it more of a shooter, because that's the object, is to blow each other up.
True, and the same thing...
But,
Destruction Derby had 2 modes. It had the traditional racing mode across dirt tracks, and then you had the let's see how much damage you can cause to everybody else's vehicle.
Yeah, I think we saw shades of that in Need for Speed for the PlayStation 2 a couple years back, which is a great game too, by the way. Good franchise.
And then you had a lot of NASCAR and Formula 1 games. But, I mean, in terms of what was the best, in my opinion, during the 90s, Gran Turismo was the best racing simulating game out there.
I was about to say, if you're going for true to the bone, straight up racing simulation, absolutely. Hands down.
Then again, though, I don't know if this was in 1999 or 2002, but the greatest video game of all time was released. Big Rigs. Big Rigs.
For those of you that don't know, a great way to intro this game is to go to YouTube.
Yes.
And look up AVGN Big Rigs.
Yeah.
And watch the video. Please excuse the language, but wow, what a pile of garbage. Like, this game is not even finished.
This game's not even in the alpha stage yet.
Well, okay, how about this? I'll give you a few little spoilers. If you go in reverse in, like, progressively faster forever.
Yep, there's
forever.
There's no wall of collision either.
There's no clipping.
Nope.
At all. Physics do not exist.
Nope.
You're going up a hill. Oh, how about we just zoom you right up it?
Yep. You could stop dead on the hill.
Yeah. Oh,
and perhaps the best thing, it's a racing game where your opponent either doesn't move or stops just short of the finishing line, depending on which version of the game you've got.
And
your winner.
Your winner. Oh, yeah. YOU''RE winner. Your winner.
You are winner. Technically correct. No, but Greg's right, guys. I should put the link in the description below. I can't do this justice. You're going to have to tip of the hat to Mr. Video Game Nerd. Because
Mr. James Rolfe himself. Yes. Yeah. Really good episode. Good series. Definitely.
Or Desert Bus.
Oh, Desert Bus.
And that counts because they made it on the Atari 1200 too, I think.
They had there was on a couple platforms, and they had some kind of contest too, where if you played it 99 times, you won a prize or something like that.
You won a prize. You actually drove on the Desert Bus from Tucson to Las Vegas, but then you got 5 days attending shows and stuff like that with Penn and Teller.
It was so funny too, because when James Rolfe reviewed that game, he was like, okay, so I just got to sit here for 10 hours. Okay. So he put something on he taped the acceleration button down and went to the bathroom. And what he found out is that the bus has it slightly lurches to the left.
Yeah.
and if you get all the way over to the side of the road, it'll stop and then it'll tow you in real time all the way back to the beginning. Oh, worst game ever, dude. Worst game ever.
My word. But I very rarely plug other people's work for nothing in return, but you know what? Go watch those 2 videos, Desert Bus and Big Rigs Angry Video Game Night.
Absolutely worth it.
Okay, so last thing we're going to talk about we've briefly touched on them. Fighting games, beat 'em ups. Traditional beat 'em ups. Not talking like the boxing games, the kickboxing games. We're talking about your Mortal Kombats, your Tekkens, your Street Fighters, your Shaq Fu's.
One of these things is not like the other.
I know, right? Smash Brothers is crap. Mortal Kombat, I think Mortal Kombat had the advantage because A, it was bloody, B, it was gory, and C, it used motion capture rather than sprites.
And it was one of the first legitimate fighting games, that was console available. You didn't have to go to an arcade to play.
No, even though it was available on arcades.
No, absolutely, but it wasn't an arcade exclusive.
Yeah.
Like some of the Neo Geo stuff, like we were talking about last week, and et cetera. Yeah.
It's ironic that Street Fighter was part of the reason why the arcades started dying off, because that was a former arcade game that
one of the most popular. Over. Yeah.
And the port was as good a quality as the arcade. In fact, it was easier than the arcade.
The joystick is not forgiving.
Not for Street Fighter.
No,
you couldn't do the guile smash kick. Street Fighter, I think, was lazy in one regard and one regard only. They knew that Ryu was going to be everybody's favorite character, so they made a clone of Ryu
And gave him bangs and a blonde wig.
Yeah, just so that they say, you can go Ryu too. Just leave me alone. You know? I mean, but then again, I used Ken more than Ryu because actually to me at least, he seemed to be a little bit slower.
Yeah, Ken's supposed to be
stronger.
Ken's supposed to be stronger. Ryu's supposed to be faster.
Yeah, and so I always handle the slower characters better. Like, even when I'm playing like Mario Kart these days, I always go the heavy cars because I can deal with the lack of acceleration. It's just the weight I need, you know?
Fun fact, I tried to name my son Ryu. The wife vetoed it.
Oh, man.
She also vetoed Dovahkiin and what was the other one? I can't remember. Yeah, I threw out like 10 of them just to mess with her. So then when I mentioned Owen, she's like, whew, "Okay, good, yeah,
yeah,
woo."
Hi, this is my son, Guybrush Threepwood Connolly, and this is my daughter, Isolde.
Dad, can I have my allowance? Quiet down, Elder Scrolls 5, Skyrim.
I'm pretty sure there are a pair of twins out there called R2D2 and C3PO. It has to be.
Sure.
Tekken, ahead of its time. I know we say that phrase a lot, but Tekken 2.
It's the chess. It was they were playing chess. Everyone else was playing checkers. Because Mortal Kombat was all block attack. But Tekken, you could side throw, you can parry, you've got
legitimate block.
Special throws. Yeah, they had
counters.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, parry. You
parry.
Move out. Well, I mean, they're not mutually exclusive, but they do exist within each other. You can parry and counter, or you can move out of the way and then watch them.
Shove their arm out the way, or you
but then you're behind them and you can throw them, or you can. Yeah, it's such a the chess game of fighting games, in my opinion. Yeah, great game.
Killer Instinct was good too. I love Killer Instinct.
You know, I didn't play that one very much, but I had a buddy of mine who was way into it, and he always just telling me about the huge combos you could do. You could like a 90 hit combo or something.
Oh, well, anyway, we might have had a technical difficulty. I'm going to try the best I can to fix it. If I can't, you hearing this message as a disclaimer. We were talking about Tekken, not Tekken, we were talking about Killer Instinct. And then multiple combos. Cinder was my character. Yeah. And he was the easiest one to do multiple combos with because he was just all fire and flame, and you jump forward with.
So he was the Eddie Gordo of Killer Instinct, or you just smash any button and you start spinning around like
how you beat Eddie Gordo? Mm-hmm. You go lay. So he does that brick that he falls, and when Eddie's doing all the break dancing kicks, he can't get hit.
There's 4 guys like that now in that game, in the new one.
Yeah, we're gonna get to something ridiculous. Like that here in a minute. I mentioned Shaq Fu was a joke. I didn't realize until I was researching this episode how hated that game is.
Yeah, that's yeah.
I thought it was a great game. Not a great game, but I thought it was average for a genre.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember renting it. I fell for the gimmick just because it was Shaq and was into basketball at the time. I don't know. It wasn't anything special to me. To me, now it's one of those games that you get and you play to see how crappy it is.
Yeah. Street Fighter, as we mentioned, came out, but one of the things that happened after this, I think, we said that the RPG and adventure genre kind of mixed together. In fighting games, everybody decided, man, who's the toughest?
Yeah.
So you had Mortal Kombat v DC. Why would Batman be in a Mortal Kombat tournament?
Yeah, those are two different universes.
I mean, Batman doesn't kill people. Batman cripples you and then lets nature decide.
Right.
Batman throws you off a cliff. He didn't kill you. He let gravity decide.
He'll ruin you financially. That's how he gets you. I mean, why do you think he's so rich?
Tekken v Street Fighter, I was so disappointed for that.
That's a thing?
That was a thing.
I did not even know about that.
I think they made 1 or 2 games and it wasn't that
Was that a platform game?
I think it was on the Xbox. I'm not sure.
No wonder.
No, I only read about it through this. I mean, but yet they just decided, you know what? We'll take every fighting game together and we'll plunge them together. I think everybody got too much Smash Brothers in them.
Yeah, I think for the most part, in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was an oversaturation of fighting games.
Yeah.
There was just too many of them. And the chaff separated from the wheat really quickly, and that's why games like Tekken are still being continually put out.
It's kind of like what happened in the olden days when Atari would put out 15 different games and only 3 of them would be any good, and the other 12 would be buried in the desert in Arizona.
I was about to say, and wonder how many copies of Desert Bus there is out there. Hopefully all of them.
On your Sega CD.
Such a waste of pixels, electricity, of just craftsmanship.
Guys, watch that video seriously. I'll put the link in the description.
You gotta watch that.
You'll understand what we're talking about. Well, that's our look down memory lane for this week. Next week, we are going to talk about kind of the second half of the decade and how Sony kind of usurped themselves into the industry and how they won a war that they weren't even a part of, which is ironic. I'm also going to look at basically where video games are now, and we've touched on some of the things, but basically the legacy of what happened in video games. So, Greg, it's good to see you. We will see you next week.
Absolutely.
And in the meantime, right now in Russia, there is an international soccer tournament going on. Russia might seem like an unusual choice for the World Cup, but in 1994, another country was chosen that was also considered an unusual choice for the World Cup. The most popular sport in the world is association football.
The game known as football in Europe and South America,
and soccer in North America and Australia.
For most countries, is the most popular sport.
However, the sport still wasn't mainstream in America in the early 90s.
In fact, when the country was picked as the host of the 1994 World Cup,
the USA didn't have a national top league,
like the Football League in England,
and Spain's La Liga.
European fans were outraged by this decision.
And a large swatch of Americans didn't even know the tournament was happening.
At the time, the USA was the largest country to host the World Cup,
forcing a logistical nightmare for fans and teams alike,
as they navigated from east to west to games,
sometimes traveling thousands of miles,
with some big nations like England, France, Portugal, and Uruguay not qualifying.
The pitches having NFL football markings on them, the hopes weren't high.
To make matters worse, Argentinian legend Diego Maradona was sent home in disgrace,
while Colombian Pablo Escobar was murdered in an alleged mob hit after the tournament.
Despite all the hardship and scandal, the tournament was considered a huge success.
To this day, it holds the record for average attendance at a World Cup due to the size of the stadia used.
It was also the first World Cup to be won in a penalty shootout,
as Brazil lifted their 4th World Cup, a joint record at the time.
The event led to a renewed interest in North American soccer,
with MLS launching in 1996, a condition of hosting.
The 94 World Cup was the first to be held outside of Europe or South and Central America.
And since the tournaments have been held in Africa and Asia,
none of this would have been possible without USA 94.
Attention 90s music fans. If you are a fan of 90s music and entertainment, you have not one, but 3 opportunities to see one of the top local lovers bands in Shreveport and the 2017 Arklatex Rock Band of the Year, the Holodecks. On July 4th, come to the 4th of July Bash at the Red River District in downtown Shreveport. Entry for this event is free and it's a family-friendly show. Search Red River District 4th of July Bash on Facebook for more information. Showtime is at 5 p.m. For those in El Dorado, Arkansas, on July 7th, the guys join up with the Molly Ringwalds to perform at the Griffin Music Hall. Please go to eldomad, eldom.com/event/Molly-Ringwalds-0 for start times and ticket information. We round out the week back in the Shreveport area, where the band perform at Celebrity Lounge in the El Dorado Casino from 8 p.m. Go to eldoradoshreveport.com/event/shows/holo-decks for more information. Showtime is at 8 p.m. For more information about the band and for dates in your area of the world, go to theholodecks.com. That's the Holo, H-O-L-L-O-W, decks.com. And check out the band on Facebook at Holodecks. Alright guys, I'm not going to keep you too much longer. I know that we spoke about a lot of things, and we've got more things coming up over the next couple of weeks. So, last week we asked a social media question, what was your favorite game in the 90s? And to be honest, Greg won. Greg got the best answer. It's definitely the Road Rush series. Yeah, such an underrated series. I love those games. Me and my cousin used to play them all the time. You know, it's dang good for what it was. Yeah. Brilliant. So if you guys are on social media, Facebook, Twitter, or Tumblr, look at Because Maybe Pod. Check out our blog at becausemaybe.podcast.wordpress.com, or go on YouTube and search Because Maybe Podcast. This week, it's a very, very simple question. You know, it's not hard, it's not controversial, it's very, very simple. What is the best video game system of all time? My answer will be put in next week's blog, and that way you will see it. It's not going to be shocking of what mine is, because I've already said many times what my favorite game system is of all time, what I think is the best of all time. So, next week we go into our final part. Hopefully my voice is going to be doing a little bit better, but we go into our final part of 90s video games. Greg and I are going to talk about the remainder of the decade, and we're going to talk about how the industry went. We're going to talk about the casualties. We're going to talk about the flaws. We're going to talk about the games and the systems, and how PC gaming went bigger and bigger, and so on and so forth. So this is the opening and closing is a little short, because I'm a little hoarse. I don't want to strain my voice too much, but guys, I want you guys to have a fantastic week, have some fun. In between next week is the 4th of July, so you know, if you guys are American, congratulations for your independence. If you guys are British, happy Wednesday. One of the things I was going to do this week was get a t-shirt that said Happy Treason Day, Ungrateful Colonials, you know. And for anybody listening, that's just a joke, you know. Chuckle y'all, everybody. So guys, have a great week, and we will talk to you next week. Have a good one.
The North Pole.